Don't mind.
We are recording.
All right. This open meeting of the Triton Regional School Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, and the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the Governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. I hereby call to order the September 1st, 2020 meeting of the Triton Regional School Committee at 6:30 p.m. I am Narissa Wallen, Chair of the Triton Regional School Committee, and I would like to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. I think I've talked to you. Is there anybody that hasn't spoken yet? I'm pretty sure we're good. And I know Peter can't talk, but he's listening and he's on chat. So I've got my chat window up and I'm watching.
And I just sent him a chat because the dial-in was set up for this meeting. So I sent him the dial-in too.
Awesome. Maybe he can do like the Raleigh Public Health nurse did the other day and had the iPad and then the phone, and it all worked out well. For this meeting, the Triton School Committee is convening remotely via Zoom using the information posted on the district's website, identifying how the public may join. If you are personally attending by video conference using your device's camera, please be aware that others may be able to see you. Committee members and administrators, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the district's website with the agenda posting unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. Each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All right, so welcome everyone to another DCC. I appreciate you taking the time tonight, and I apologize, I did mean to send the DCC agenda reminder out earlier today, and the day got away from me, as days have had the habit of doing lately. So I apologize for not getting that out as a reminder until just an hour and a half ago. So we can go around and do quick introductions if you don't mind, just so that it's there for the record. So I'm Narissa Wallen. I'm chair of the Triton School Committee. I don't know who wants to go next, just volunteer basis, I guess, tonight, since there aren't that many of us.
Mike Doyle, Selectman, Town of Newbury.
Thanks, Mike.
Maureen Heffernan, School Committee. I realized I got to change my name on my screen. I'm not
Leo?
I'm not Leo.
Alicia Greco, Chair, Board of Selectmen, Newbury.
Thanks, Alicia.
Ronnie Ray Parrott, Board of Selectmen, Salisbury.
Thanks, Ronnie.
Paul Mayette, School Committee, Newbury.
Thank you, Paul.
Larry White, Finance Committee, Raleigh.
Thank you, Larry. Mr. Lees, do you want to?
Paul Lees, School Committee, Raleigh.
Sorry, go ahead, Linda. Thank you, Paul.
Linda Lukoski, School Committee.
Thank you. Peterson Sulo is from Raleigh Finance Committee, and Mr. Joe Perry just joined us. Hello, Joe. You're on mute.
Still on mute.
There we go.
Alrighty.
There you are.
Hey, Joe, how's it going?
Pretty good. Very good.
Good. Glad to hear it. All right, and I think that's everybody. Kim, did we get you?
Hi, Kim Croto, Assistant Superintendent.
Thank you. I was trying to go around and figure out when it's not in order, it gets a whole heck of a lot harder to figure out who's we've been through and who we haven't. So I'm going to hand it straight over to Brian for the Triton Fall reopening update. And Brian, if you want to take it over, I'll monitor the entry room.
I think that's Peter calling in. Peter, if that's you, you got to kill the other connection on the computer or whatever. You're going to get that loop, that feedback loop.
I think it's better.
Yeah, I muted the phone too, just so that
okay.
Because I think if it, yeah. Okay, so in regards to, excuse me, an update, there isn't a whole lot new from the last time we met in regards to our opening plan. Just so that you're aware, staff started back yesterday. So from August 31st, which is yesterday, through Tuesday the 15th are professional days. So we are using those. Staff are a mix remote and in the buildings, prepared, participating in trainings. Yesterday was convocation and then some safety trainings, all remote, school-based meetings. Next week, there'll be some in person, some remote. And then the following week, Monday and Tuesday, we have tentatively agreed with the TRTA that we're going to create some orientation sessions. It's not what we wanted to do. Ideally, we would love to have full orientations and have students in and filtering, cycling through as cohorts. But obviously, we chose to open in a remote fashion for the reason or for safety reasons. And so to then bring students in and all staff in all at once like that it seemed like a double standard to do that. So it's not ideal, but our goal is to have every elementary student sit with her or his teacher. And then at the middle and the high school, we're going to focus on 7th and 9th grade and then do curbside to make sure we have all the supplies and materials that 8th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders have. And then once we do transition to hybrid, again, tentatively scheduled for October 13th, we would use those first days to kind of run a full schedule so that students can meet all their teachers right away. So I should say a full shortened schedule so that all the students can meet all their teachers on that first day of school. So we have shifted into, I was walking in with Kim this morning, happened pulling in the same time and walking in feeling like there are so many things, everything has been so hypothetical. So now it almost feels like as things are actually happening, we must be forgetting something because everything is actually now all from theory now to actually in practice. So lots of training, obviously all the safety aspects. I believe we shared with you, we did an entire facilities assessment. Every square foot of space in the buildings was assessed for air exchange. Obviously Pine Grove came out swimmingly, so we're waiting for the reports. But the last assessment, the last room was finished today at Newbury Elementary. So we're expecting those reports and then over this week and into next week, be able to remedy any of the situations that are rising. We know there was some fan motors out on the roof at the high school and some other components that needed to be addressed. But bar anything catastrophic that they found and haven't yet reported to us, they've been keeping us up to date along the way, and we should be in good shape. So that was more money than we wanted to spend, but I think it's important that at the end of the day we can have a report that clearly articulates every single room and the airflow and air exchange for the students and for staff safety. So, Paul, were you going to ask a question?
Yeah, I wanted to add in too that, when you talk about the money being spent, it wasn't spent willy-nilly. We were dealing with teacher negotiations. We've been in negotiations with them for quite some time, and they have a whole host of issues and concerns. So this was not money that was spent lightly, and I just want everybody to know that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think as much as it's for teacher safety, obviously it's also for student safety. So I think on both fronts. So to Paul's point, I will say we are still currently in negotiations with the teachers. You're starting to hear of districts where it is not going swimmingly. We'll just say that, right? And so I continue to be very pleased and appreciative. So it's been Paul Lees and Maureen Heffernan and Paul Goldner who has shifted out. But it's their work, and the teachers have come to the table, and certainly, they're doing their job as an association. So we don't always see eye to eye, but by and large, they've come with a very, very, I don't know what the right word is, approachable, reasonable, constructive and positive perspective moving forward. So I am very confident that we will not be one of those districts where the year doesn't start as planned. So, we know we're starting remote. The goal was to do that so we could control that and structure that well. And I'm very confident that even as we shift and hopefully shift towards hybrid, that we'll have everyone on board, and that'll be an effective and constructive and positive process. So I'm very appreciative to that. The big topic du jour now is athletics. So it's actually in the agenda posted for the school committee meeting on Thursday night to review the MIAA. So the Department of Ed and MIAA came out with overall guidelines. Fall sports can happen. They basically kicked football and cheer to a floating season in February. All other fall sports, volleyball, boys and girls soccer, boys and girls cross country, field hockey, and golf can proceed. I'm pretty sure the Cape Ann League and everyone else has decided that volleyball is an easy one to shift to the floating season. So I believe that's where the Cal is going to agree. The other sports, we were hoping that there would be some consensus within the Cape Ann League. The school committee started the discussion. The high school principal and athletic director were there last Wednesday. We were hoping there'd be a little more clarity this week. There's not going to be any more clarity this week. We know that the majority of the Cape Ann League schools are probably next week at the very earliest making a decision. Because we're starting in remote, the guidelines and we're required to have the school committee take a vote to allow us to participate in fall sports because of the fact that we're opening in remote. So there's five districts in the Cal that are opening remotely. The districts who are not opening remotely don't have to take a school committee vote, but they also haven't committed to opening and doing fall sports either. So it'll be, I think there's some committees that will take a vote, some that don't have to. And then obviously we can only move forward if the school committee does take that vote. So that is on the agenda for Thursday night. That was posted and sent out to the whole DCC group as well. So you can take a look at that guidance. I think we can safely say it is not going to be the sport that these student athletes are used to, right? So when you look at the way that soccer is modified so that we can keep distance and keep everyone safe, it's just simply not going to be the same game. So there's, like I said, it's certainly worth a read if you're at all interested or invested, as a parent, for example, with a student athlete. But that is certainly the kind of the biggest topic right now across the state is what fall sports will run. The Northeast Conference, which is the one that Masco pulled out of the Cal and joined, larger Beverly, Swampscott, bigger cities and towns. They voted to suspend all fall sports for the fall and move everything to I keep calling it the bumper season, but it's that floating season, which is February to early April. And it has been a wild time in those communities since they made that choice. So this is certainly a very, very hot button issue. So just so that you're aware of that. And then the last thing is that, we continue to watch the testing capacities and the testing and tracing, really. And I know that was one of the things that we wanted to meet about was the contact tracing capabilities within the towns. I think you all saw that it was, I guess it's going on 2 weeks ago now, a week and a half ago, the governor unveiled a rapid response team, if you will. It has been since then further clarified that is for outbreaks, that is for clusters, that is not for 1, 2, 3 cases within a school. So if we had 14 students test positive in a classroom, yes. If we had 14 test positive in a school, possibly. So there aren't any metrics yet, but just, lest anyone, the way it was touted, it came across as, hoo-hoo, we've solved the problem. It is unequivocally a good thing, right? We need more testing and we need more capacity. But it does not solve the problem in regards to what we've been talking about. I also reached out, as I reported to the school committee last week, to Gary Lee, who was, I believe his title is the Director of Clinical Services or Vice President of Clinical Services, in regards to some kind of partnership. And there really is no capacity. So any of the tests that, Enojakes, and this would be the same for any hospital. So Enojakes is now, right, Lahey, Beth Israel. So it's that whole network now. Any rapid tests or other tests that they have on site have to be used for their incoming patients, right? So they need to leave the rapid tests on the shelf for that person who walks through the door, comes in by ambulance, or who literally walks through the door or is wheeled through the door, or emergency surgeries or any of those things, they have to have a rapid test available, or at least a 24-hour test to be able to administer their hospital and keep their hospital safe. So the only option is I'm sure many of you have seen, they have a tent there at Anna Jake's, and they partner with Quest Labs, which is one of the larger national labs across the country nationally. So we could certainly set up something with them to be able to facilitate easy testing, and we could certainly facilitate that. Same day we could likely have a family be able to bring their child, but it has to be with a physician's order, and maybe we could accomplish that with a district physician, but we really can't. So there's some gray there, and then we would still be subject to all the timing that anyone else would that walks into that tent. So with weeks and weeks ago it was 10-day turnaround. Right now he said it's running 3 to 4 days. So again, better, we're getting there. But I would say it's safe to say we still haven't arrived. So those are kind of the kind of latest and greatest. A lot of the communication that was on, if you go to the Stay Connected site, is really now shifting to the schools. So it's school specific things like the schedule that we were talking about at the beginning of this meeting, and class lists and teacher assignments at the elementary school, and planning for that first day remote, and also obviously planning for preschool screening, which is happening Thursday, and kindergarten screening, which will happen on the 14th and 15th. So it's all happening now, which is so far the response from the first 2 days with staff back and training, and I think we're in a good place and ready to keep moving forward. So any questions? I know there wasn't really any.
Brian, can you talk about USDA meals too, real quick?
Oh, yes. I have that on my list. And I looked right over it because I wrote it very quickly and you can't read my writing. So the waiver at U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA Meals Program, that was the waiver that allowed us to, actually, it was in phases. So originally it allowed us to produce meals in Salisbury and deliver to Salisbury. And then we partnered with the Boys and Girls Club and our Neighbors Table to deliver meals to Newbury and Rowley, those in need. It was then extended over the summer. We did the meals program for about 6 of the 10 weeks over the summer. That waiver was just granted through December 31st, which means we're able to produce or produce and deliver meals and provide meals to all students across the district, no qualification, all 3 towns through December. So obviously for right now in fully remote, it's going to be all curbside pickup. Once we shift to hybrid, it'll be partly where students can get a meal, breakfast and lunch when they're at school in the days they're in, and then meal delivery for the other days. So we're likely going to be consolidating this, because in the spring, it was all of our food service staff who did unbelievable work, but they weren't serving anyone in the schools. So for the next 4 weeks, for the first 4 weeks of school, I should say, pretty straightforward, same thing we were doing in the spring. As of the 16th of September, I'm sorry, as of the 13th of October, when we shift to hybrid, there will be a cohort of students in the building every day where they're producing and serving meals to, but then we also need to be able to produce the remote meals. So what we're looking at is actually a Monday delivery for all 10 meals. So it's 5 breakfasts and 5 lunches, and then offering curbside pickup, as well as also using the buses, working with with NRT. And I believe, without any additional cost, we'll be able to deliver those meals, at least through the remote phase. And then even when we go back to hybrid, Monday is a remote day. So that would allow Monday to stay. That structure all year long allows us to deliver meals, breakfast and lunch, to anyone wanting it. So no qualification. You say you want the meals, we can produce the meals, and they're federally reimbursable. So thank you for reminding me, Narissa, because that is a very positive shift. The school committee hasn't even seen that yet. They saw that in the agenda that went out today, but we'll announce that on Thursday. I mean, it's already.
Yeah. And that's been terrific. I think a lot of families are, you know, they have small businesses or they've lost hours or lost business as time goes on. So they're still, in some cases, even 2-income families, but it's not the income that it was pre-COVID. And that's definitely put a strain on them. So I think that's going to be important to continue as time goes on. So that was good. Any questions for Brian or any of us? All right, seeing none, I'm hoping that you have some updates for us on contact tracing. That's one of the other things. I should say too, the agenda for Thursday that's posted includes a draft version of the metrics. And this is one of the things that will be considered as a metric to make sure that, you know, if there are positive cases, which I don't know, I mean, it goes to your philosophy, I guess, but we have positive cases in our community. It stands to reason just by odds that at some point we'll have positive cases in our school. That, you know, we need to be able to appropriately contact trace those as part of minimizing the spread along with the testing process that's going through. So I'm hoping that people have some updates.
So I know that Neil had a family emergency and wouldn't be able to be here today, but he was able to meet with Jack. Did Jack or Neil reach out to you, Brian?
I did. Neil called me. Yep.
Okay. So from the Salisbury side, essentially Jack was going to come up with a plan on what to do, and felt pretty confident that he could, very similar to what he did in Amesbury with the nursing homes, being able to contract out with RNs to be able to complete the contact tracing. Did you get any more information, Brian, from when Neil called you? Because I had asked him just to give you a call and update you.
Yeah, so he chatted with Jack, and he said they've been trading voicemails. So he got a lot of information via voicemails. But that basically exactly what you said. And I shared with Neil that the issue is going to be timeliness, right? So it's going to be a matter of all of a sudden one classroom could produce more contacts that they have to trace than they've had to trace throughout the whole pandemic since March. So yeah, and Neil committed to the fact that if there's a needed capacity, right, that there's COVID, the same COVID pot of funds, if you will, the CBRF funding that the district has access to, the towns have access to, and he certainly supports if it's added time. He said there's been a couple situations where Jack or the public health nurse needed to do additional work, and certainly they put more hours in if they're all both part-time, but absolutely have the capacity there to be able to support. So yeah, totally committed to that, and feels like there's a solid plan in place. Yep.
To give everybody else on the call, I guess, a little bit background on that, from what Jack told me when there was the outbreak. So Jack is shared between Salisbury and Amesbury. When there was the nursing home outbreak in Amesbury I think it was in early May, if I remember correctly, they initially contacted the Contact Tracing Collaborative. They were having some communication snafus, I guess, going on with that. So what Jack ended up doing is they kind of used the Contact Tracing Collaborative as a sort of stopgap measure. That's the state overall kind of arching system. And at that time, they were also identifying local resources that they could use for contact tracing, because they had obviously nursing home patients, but they had also had visitors, and they had a lot of staff who did not live inside the community, which is kind of a compounding factor, because the contact tracing is generally done with the town of residence for the individual that's been exposed, but there has to be that that communication there between the town where the exposure is identified and the town where the individual who's been exposed lives. So that's part of my understanding of what's kind of resource intensive, is making those connections and making sure that that the public health nurses in particular are having that conversation about isolation and potential testing, and whether a test result has come in and when it would be appropriate for that individual to be able to return to their place of work in the town other than where they live. So they ended up actually identifying 7 registered nurses that they then used just for that outbreak period to be able to work with the public health nurse and the health agent, Jack, to do contact tracing just for that. And then as the new cases started to kind of wind down as part of that process that they were going through, they were able to slowly kind of bring the RNs off of that contact tracing process until they were just back down to the public health nurse. So it wasn't a long-term thing, but it was something where they stepped in and filled that gap in the short term where there was a whole lot of work going on. And then at that point, they kind of returned to their normal resources. And we have no idea what we could experience with the schools, but that's the scenario that I think we would hopefully see playing out, where, like Brian said, if it's a classroom full of students that have been exposed, and the staff that goes with that, there's going to be a whole heck of a lot of contact tracing to go through up front, and then hopefully additional spread hasn't happened. If there is, then that contact tracing needs to go on to where that spread has happened, but otherwise hopefully it can wind back down as part of the as the contact tracing and the isolation sort of phases out over time. So that would be the hope. So it sounds like Salisbury is on their way. Newbury or Rowley, does anyone have any updates, hopefully, on any resources you're able to bring in to back up your public health nurse and health agent?
So this is Alicia.
Hey, Alicia.
Hi, Narissa. And I'm sorry I missed the last meeting, and I'm playing kind of catch up. Did Deb Rogers say anything to your group about this at all, or?
I haven't talked to her in probably
Okay.
a week, 2 weeks. I don't know if Brian has.
I mean, I've definitely communicated with her. I mean, for her, she's certainly, she and Pam have, stayed in communication, and as have the other health agents and public health nurses. The conversation with her was a matter of capacity. So certainly an interest, but I think it's the capacity with her and Pam both being half-time that on any given day, it's working when there's, I don't know the total number of cases, but when it's, in the low teens total since March, very doable. But if that were to double overnight or triple overnight, it's a capacity issue. So
go ahead, sorry, Brian.
I was gonna say the only thing that I've heard this from Jack and Neil and Tracy and Deb specifically is finding public health nurses, right? So the health agents are wonderful. It's the nurses that do the tracing and finding, as we're experiencing also, trying to get, we were trying to double up our nurses in each school, and it's just, there aren't any nurses out there to find. And so it's the finding the nurses that's the challenge at this point.
So would the model that they used in Amesbury, would that be available to Triton if needed?
It's not contact tracing isn't a district function. It's always about the town of residence.
Right. So the model that was used in Amesbury, though, with the 7 people that the nurses that they found, is that something that would be available to to the towns in the district?
So that was something that Jack did, is my understanding. That was Jack specific identifying those. I don't know if Ronnie has any further information. So I think Newbury could identify individuals that could step in and help, but I think if we have an outbreak, especially, or positive cases, should I say, especially at the middle school and high school, there's going to be cases in every single town. So I don't see this being a situation where if Salisbury has identified a few individuals, they're going to be ones that can be shared with Newbury and Rowley. I think it's, especially at the middle school, high school, it's going to hit all 3 towns. And we have a lot of siblings in the district. So that's something that I've thought about as well, is that it's a possibility that we could be hitting, because the most common place for transmission is in a single household, because there is such close contact. People don't normally wear masks there. There's a lot of high touch surfaces that aren't cleaned as often as they might be in a public space. it's a possibility that that having a positive case in one of our schools could quickly lead to positive cases in other of our schools as well.
Okay.
I don't know if that helps.
I'll circle back. I'm gonna have to go do some reconnaissance on this, and I will get back to you.
Okay, I do have, I think, good news for you, at least a little bit. Since it's public record, when people email the school committee, I can say we had a parent that reached out to us that has done both of the CDC contact tracing courses and was reaching out. She has a healthcare background. She was reaching out to Deb Rogers. So that may be one of your people already
Perfect.
that could potentially step in.
Okay. I plan to talk to Deb tomorrow anyway, so I'll mention it to her.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
I gotta say, any town who had a nursing home, like Raleigh had a very a similar situation with their Seaview. So anyone who has had any kind of nursing home had a very similar situation come April and May, and they were able to do the contract tracing. So I think that people do step up. They are able to complete it. I don't know if we can ever come up with a 100% plan that, and I just think that our health directors, like the minute I reached out to Jack and Neil, and they were like, of course we'll do that. We'll be able to do that. We can come up with a plan. So I don't think it's too complicated, I think is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's just knowing that preparation has been done, because I mean, in talking to Jack, one of his things was that they had that gap where they had kind of plugged in the CTC, but it wasn't
Real.
I don't know what to say about that, because Jack has some very flowery terms he likes to use, as you know.
It doesn't mince words, right? It just straight up. Jack,
Not something I can repeat. So it didn't work. And they obviously had to come up with something, but having the CTC in there bought them time. It just wasn't as effective time as I think we'd like to see, because those first few days are gonna count. I mean, where people talk about schools as petri dishes, it's just the way things are, even with masks and social distancing and everything else.
not our schools, but other schools. I've heard that. Yeah.
Correct. Never a petri dish. So, Joe, any chance on an update for Rowley?
I have no update. We did discuss it at our last selectmen's meeting, and we won't meet again until the 14th. But my hat's off to you and all the planning that's gone on. And I could only offer a historical perspective from my own point of view that when I was teaching and my wife was teaching in Revere, I was teaching in Marblehead. My youngest son was at Pine Grove School, and my oldest son was at St. John's Prep. So we were bringing home 4 times the average flu bites, and so we were sick quite a bit.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Joe. I mean, I guess I can reach out to Frank, but I know Frank is usually reluctant to kind of, he knows, right? He's not the kind of guy to go out and do this. That's not his go-to.
Right.
So I think anything that can come from you, or I don't know if, I'm assuming you've had conversations with Debbie, if it was on the agenda about what could happen, that would be tremendously helpful, because we're looking at a checkpoint date of September 30th to potentially open on October 13th, and trying to do our best to drive everything toward that point and get it all lined up. So
Right. And anything heard or anything that we can do, I'll talk to Frank, but
Okay.
Right now I have nothing that could add to your information.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah. Let me know what I need to do too. If I need to reach out directly to Debbie, I'm happy to do that. Like I said, I can go to Frank. I know Frank just usually says like, well, if that's the situation, then, this is what we could do, but I don't have the authorization to just go ahead and do that. So that's, he's kind of a middle ground, I think, for where a decision needs to be made.
I was going to say, I think that puts the health agent in a weird
Yeah.
spot, right?
It
Because
does.
they go in and say, you know, I need to be full-time, right? And it's just kind of an odd place to put the agent. So I think that's the hope, is that it's more kind of at the board level to make the decision. But, you know, like I said to Neil today, I think, Rhonda, I didn't use the exact same words, but it's never going to be perfect, right? There's no way we're going to say, yeah, we have all the contact tracing we need. But the goal is that when the committee makes a decision on the 30th of September, to feel confident that there'll be a plan in place on short order, so that it doesn't become anyone's black eye, right? Because it's inevitably going to happen. When we're back, there's going to be a case. And if we can respond quickly to it, and that gives parents confidence, that goes well for everyone, the towns, the district. So that's the key, is just making sure that we're ready to jump. If and when, or more when, we've got to do that. And I think hopefully the committee can have that confidence on the 30th.
Yeah.
And you're always dealing with individuals who are more forthcoming and some who are not.
Absolutely. Yes.
It's true. And I think this is a conversation I had with Rep Hill, was that that schools are a vector to a degree, right? There's, you know, there could potentially be spread in the schools, but I think the schools attached to every single thing in the community. So we want to stop it here, so that it doesn't get into nursing homes, so that it doesn't get into, you know, multi-generation households where the really high mortality risk individuals are located. You know, those are the places that you don't want it to go. So if we can stop it here, then we can contain the risk to our entire community that we live in. Sorry, Linda, I know you had something you want to say.
You have a parent in Newbury who's gone through all of the training. I know it's probably not up to the schools to reach out to parents, but maybe the selectmen or our health agents can reach out to, you know, parents or community members in our 3 towns, that they're the ones who get involved when we do have a contact tracing it, that we have to bring into the schools. Is that an option that could happen for all the 3 towns to look into?
I was going to say, there's actually been a couple parents that reached out to me directly. And I said, awesome, right? I mean, it's not us. We don't do the contact tracing, but if you're interested, I will certainly connect you with the town health agents. I know one didn't reply to me and contacted a health agent. One I never heard from, so they might have contacted. So, I mean, certainly we could even put out an APB to families in general and say, you know, if anyone is a certified contact tracer, I got to get the actual title, whatever that is. But if you're a trained contact tracer, we certainly can use you. And then, you know, if there's a bank of 30 people ready to go, excellent. Yeah.
I can also at least speak for myself, and I know I've been emailing all the Salisbury selectmen, and they're all on the same page, that as a selectman, I can't imagine us ever not saying, yes, we will pay for contact tracing to make sure this goes down. We are starting to get, you know, with the decision to go remote, we're starting to get pushback from community members, like, you know, are our taxes going down? What's happening? All this stuff. So I can assure you, we will do whatever we need to do to get the kids back in school as soon as possible. Hybrid, whatever that looks like. So I can't imagine any one of the Salisbury selectmen and through my emails back and forth, letting them know after I've watched every school committee meeting that they wouldn't do whatever needs to happen, because we are getting pushback.
Yeah, and I can appreciate that. I can say we are trying to use our ESSER and all our CARES Act funding in the best way possible, but there are some big ticket items that had to be invested in to even prepare the buildings. I mean, talking about that ventilation report. So as much as it seems like we should be saving some money here, we still have kids in buildings, we still have teachers in buildings. We had to soup up our technology in a big way, because that hadn't been that much of a focus in the past. There were a lot of things that we've been having to spend money on, even though there were savings on things like buses and substitutes in the classrooms and stuff like that in the spring. So, and I anticipate it's going to go that way for the fall as well. So
One thing I wanted to mention, going back to the contact tracing, is I don't know what it takes to qualify for one. Hopefully it's not a 4-year college degree with extra for master's. But if the, it maybe is a 6-week course, but if you contact the parents and say, hey, it's a 6-week course, if you want to volunteer to take it now, okay, become qualified, rather than look for qualified people. There might be people out there that want to volunteer for something, and that would be a perfect thing for them to become a contact tracer and be ready if and when they're needed.
yeah, and we definitely have parents that are stepping forward to do that. It doesn't seem like it's a crazy long process. It's my understanding is it's 2 CDC courses, and then they have to go to the health agent that they would be working under in the long term, and request that they, I believe, put them into the Mass DPH system, which is a step. They actually have to gain access to those systems and then be trained in the Massachusetts specific systems. So I think part of the disconnect here is been we can't run the contact tracing, and you know, I think we'll help in any way we can, but that plan needs to happen on the town side. We'll go as far as we can and help as much as we can, because the goal is to
But
get
I mean, you
the
can
schools
still,
open, but we can't make the plan.
I know that, but you can at least alert the parents that it's a 2-week or 6-week course or something like that. Contact your local health agent, and for each town you list the contact agent, so that they know beforehand that it's not a 4-year degree driven thing to become a contact tracer, and that it's something that maybe they can do aside. All you're doing is just providing them the information. You're not running the course or anything like that, but at least let them know what it's going to take.
Yeah, absolutely. And if the towns come back to us and say, you know, we know we're going to need X number of people, I think that's something that we can definitely do. I don't know if, I mean, Jack may say, I have my 7 RNs already that I could bring on board. They're all trained and ready to go. And then Salisbury might not need anybody. So I don't know what that's going to look like by town. So I think what we were hoping to do as of the last meeting was start that planning process with the towns to understand what was needed and how that was going to be done. Because I don't know, for some it may look like a hire right now. For others, it may look like, you know, lining up those people who could come in on short-term notice. So it could look, it could even look different from town to town. And I don't, you know, that's not a decision we can make as a district,
Right.
because we can only go as far as our doors, essentially.
And I would guess it's not a hire right now. I don't think anyone's going to hire somebody to sit there and wait. You know, especially because we don't know when you guys are even going back to school. So we could have somebody sitting even longer than we want them to. So, I mean, we call you be able to do that. And the people I've talked to, it's literally an RN or a nurse, LPN, whatever it is, sitting at their house making phone calls.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's not a matter of having to hire someone. It's we're going to contract with you. So I think just having the resources to contract with someone. And I feel as though Jack, at least, there might have been a couple blips along the way, but I think that there was a little bit of ironing out with the unfortunate incident that happened in the Amesbury nursing home where there were some deaths. So
yes. And although I will say too, Jack totally credited that team with limiting the spread to where it was. So clearly once things were up and running, it worked well. So, all right. So I think that was it, unless, do you have anything else, Brian?
No, I'm just actually writing myself notes. I'm going to email Deb and Pam after this and ask about the two of them email me with me the most, just about that question about, is it a course? To Larry's point, I'm pretty sure it's not a 4-year degree to be a contact tracer, and I don't think you have to be a nurse either, but I'll get a little intel on that to see if that's something that we could get detailed.
No, and I do think it's very important to get these ducks lined up in a row, so to speak, so that you
Yeah.
know, when it does happen, because it's not going to be if it happens, it's going to be when it happens.
Yep.
That we're ready to go.
Agreed.
And that was, I have to say, our take on this all along was that we may have low cases now, but if things go south, we need to be prepared for that, because otherwise we're not doing anybody any service in this. So, so that said, I mean, I think we can provide updates. We have school opening on the 16th, and we'll obviously be having conversations in between, and then we have a vote on the 30th. But I kind of put it back on you in this conversation to say, when should we meet next to get an update on this, to hopefully know, hopefully in advance of the 30th, that that kind of those resources have been identified, and that the towns are feeling confident, and the health departments are feeling confident that contact tracing is not beyond their capacity. Do you have a sense? Do we want to go out 2 weeks? Do we want to go out? I mean, we can get much farther along in September, I guess. I don't know where you're feeling. I know Joe had mentioned they meet on the 14th, so I don't know if we want to look at the 17th, or that's back to a Thursday. I mean, you know, I can say for the school committee members, they've been great about making it any night we need to make it, because people are home in general.
What about the 24th, Narissa?
The 24th?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my concern is if there are issues along the way, I want to check in. So I'm not sure I want to go all the way to the 24th, but I guess too, if we could have one point person from each town who says, I'm going to be the person on this call that takes this back and makes sure it's seen through, and they're willing to check in with me and Brian throughout that process to make sure it's going well, and they're okay with us reaching out to them to make sure it's going well, then, you know, going to the 24th is fine at that point. We just need to make sure that this is happening as part of our due diligence, even though it's, you know, not really within our control.
Which is, I guess I'm just frustrated, because that was kind of the letter that you sent out, was asking the Board of Selectmen to make sure that they did this. So just as far as with Salisbury, you got our answer from Jack. If you need any more, please let me know, because I will absolutely be the contact person, and our selectmen are in full support. So Jack has kind of responded to you, Brian, that he feels as though he can get the ducks in a row. Neil knows this is a priority, so let me know if you need more from Salisbury. But I read Narissa's email and got right on it and sent out an email to all the other selectmen to make sure we were on pace, because I get it. This needs to happen, because I can tell you we are getting pressure from people. So that's why we need to do whatever has to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Ronnie.
So let's not do the 24th. Let's go with either the 10th or the 17th. No, I hear you loud and clear. We don't want to wait.
Well, we can go too with the 10th or the 7th. Well, so Raleigh doesn't meet again until the 14th, but I'm hoping Joe would take this as or I can coordinate with Debbie, or if you want to say should be your go-to
No, that's
person,
fine
and I'll
with
go
me.
talk to them. It's fine to be you?
I'm willing.
Okay.
And I'll
Thank
take
you,
it for Newbury and Narissa. I'll work with Tracy and Deb on it. And I'll
All
circle
right.
back to you and Brian. I don't
Thank
think I
you.
need to bring this to the board.
Yeah, I don't know how it works within the towns. I would say whatever you can do would be helpful. I don't know if it's a board issue. I don't know if it's a town administrator speaking with the health department. I don't know where that lies. I just, you know, I need to have
I
somebody
don't
kind
think
of
the
driving
board
it, I
wouldn't have
guess.
to vote on it. This is something that would just have to happen.
Yep.
So I think with the town administrator and the health agent, and then I can just apprise the board. I'm not sure if we're meeting again until the end of the month. So it'll
Okay.
just come under, you know, meeting updates. I'll let them know what's going on. So.
Okay.
And that's what we did in Salisbury, Alicia. I just basically, after Narissa sent the letter, I just kind of explained it to all the other selectmen, and Neil said, you know, he'd take it from here. And then I emailed him last week just to say, have you checked in? So it's just constantly kind of reminding Neil, because a lot's on his plate right now.
Right. Right.
So I agree. I don't think it's a vote. It's just, you know, for the town manager to say to the health Board of Health, you need to do this. And
Yeah, I don't want the town to get blindsided by it, because it's
Alicia,
gonna happen.
Alicia, I think we should bring it up at Thursday's meeting. We have a
No, it's
meeting-
not on the agenda, Mike.
Well, maybe we can put it on the agenda.
No, the agenda's already been posted.
Okay.
Do we want to look at we can look at the 17th or the 24th would be Thursdays. I feel like I've heard from a couple of people who couldn't make Tuesdays that they just simply can't make Tuesdays. So I don't know if we want to try moving back to a Thursday to have a few more people. Or, we can stick on a Tuesday if there are, I would say I would prioritize our 3 main contacts from the towns now. So if you can't make a Thursday, then I would rather not move to a Thursday. Ronnie, Joe, and Alicia.
Well, our board meets on Tuesday nights. So
Okay.
starting in October, we'll be meeting every other Tuesday.
Okay. So do you want to look at, how about the 17th? Would that work? It's a Thursday. We could do a 6:30.
That's okay for me.
It's okay for you?
Fine with me.
Yeah? Yeah? All right. Alicia, is that good for you too? Just so that I make sure those 3 contacts are. Alicia?
Sorry, I couldn't get back to the Zoom. Yeah, the 17th works.
Okay.
I'm on my phone, so I can't, I was afraid to come off the Zoom.
I appreciate that. I understand. All right, then we'll set for the 17th at 6:30, and I will check in with everyone in between to make sure that the wheels continue to turn, I think, as this goes forward. And hopefully we'll have solid answers, or as close to solid answers as we're going to get that night.
Can I ask you one other question, Narissa?
Yeah.
Just a little bit, I don't know if this is, because I don't have the agenda up, but
Yep.
I know one other thing that in addition to contact tracing was also the increase in testing.
Yes.
And I know you and I have been emailing back and forth, but just so that you
Yep.
let everybody know, because one thing that we had talked about, Narissa and I have been kind of messaging back and forth, that it may entail having to write letters to our legislatures and governors. And again, I have a whole bunch of parents that will be very willing to write the letters, but I know you were following up with Diana to find out exactly what to be asking for. So do we
Yes.
know if that will happen soon so that we can get those letters out?
So I'm hoping so. So I need to reconnect with Brian too, because I think this is a question. So my understanding is that Quest in general is running faster than our local sources are. And I think that may be because of the specific Quest lab location that they're assigned to. That's kind of the working theory right now, is that some of the labs may be working, so on average they may be at 2 days, 1 to 2 days, which is a lot of the turnarounds that a lot of the state is seeing. But maybe our lab is functioning a little bit slower because they're saying like it should be a quick specimen pickup, and then it's in the lab, and then it's electronically right back to the hospital and into Maven, the public health system, at the same time. So I think that's one of the questions, because in talking to Diana DiZoglio, one of the things that came to light was they don't seem to be breaking this down by region right now. That results return time is not being broken down by region. So I think if we can identify where the issue is for us, then hopefully that will help us fix it. Just saying our turnaround time is high doesn't necessarily help all that much, I think. So I was hoping Brian can go back to his contact and identify where Anna Jakes is getting their Quest testing done, because I think that's going to be a key to a lot of this.
Interesting. Yeah.
And we just hadn't had that conversation yet, because
We're
everybody's going in 17 directions. And it's not an easy thing to ask, I
Yeah.
don't think either, or explain. But we do seem to be slower than the rest of the state. I mean, in talking to Diana, over half of the state was seeing turnaround times under 3 days. And we were still seeing, up until last Friday, I believe, Anna Jakes was at 3 to 5, and Convenient MD, which is the one big private one that we have locally that will test minors, was at 5 to 7. So that's significantly higher than what the state average is seeing. So my guess is, and I've kind of floated this theory, is that there are a bulk of the tests that are happening probably in the urban areas and in the cities, and those are probably have a faster lab, or a lab that's running those results quicker. And and getting, kind of skewing the state average. Whereas, I mean, I can say, I want to say, Diana, I think it was 10% at the time that we made our vote, which we were hearing locally, it was like 10 to 12 days, 8 to 10 days, in that range. Only 10% of the state was over 6 days in the results turnaround at that point. So it seems like we're off, and I think we picked up on that, and I think it's a matter of helping everyone understand where that issue is, so that hopefully it can be fixed. So, but I'm hoping we can help in kind of locally with that homework that needs to get done.
Well, just
because otherwise it's just us saying it's not fast enough, and if there's no right. Yeah.
And I guess, solution focused, what needs to happen to get to solve that problem. And if it is people reaching out to whatever, I can assure you we can get people to reach out, because that's obviously something that's got to be solved. And I don't know if it's because our whole area is all white, so they're like, why do we have to rush it? I mean, if all of a sudden we have a couple that go to yellow, and suddenly our testing goes up, so it's kind of what's going to come first. So, I think whatever needs to happen, whatever you need from us, please let us know, because I have plenty of contacts. Being a parent, a Triton parent, I can tell you, I can pull plenty of parents to write letters.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And I've had conversations with almost all of our legislators live at this point, and all of them have said, we're advocating for you. We understand that this is an issue. It's not just, it's not just schools that we're hearing this from. I know Rep. Hill in particular was saying, I'm hearing this from nursing homes all the time, that the turnaround is not fast enough for them. And so it's an identified problem. I just don't think that digging is going on. And I hope if we can dig a little deeper and, shed some light, that hopefully that'll help us go in the right direction. Diana seemed to think, though, that what we need to do is advocate straight to the DPH as far as individual families. And she actually gave me the email address for that, which I sent on to you. And I'm happy to, I mean, as soon as we can, I think, encapsulate this issue, then putting that all together is an easy thing to do now that we have that email address, and we'll hopefully be able to put the messaging that needs to sit behind it, and then just let people tailor that as needed. So,
sure, great. Thank you.
I appreciate that.
And I'll continue to reach out to you to give you this information.
Thank you.
We'll get it going. And
I'm doing as fast as I can.
Right. And I think
emails have been a lot.
Maureen was on one of the Facebook loops of sending out the letters. So, she was responding to it too. So I'm sure, I feel confident that we can get parents to do whatever they need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Anything else before we sign off? All right, seeing none, I appreciate your time tonight, and thank you for being our feet on the street, so to speak, with making sure that we can get our kids back to school and get this work done. And I will talk to you on the 17th, and we will get out a meeting reminder for the rest of the DCC for that within the next day or so. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay safe, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.